You've probably been told that energy is some spiritual, abstract concept, reserved for mystics, yogis, or people burning incense on mountaintops. But let me be straight with you. That's the biggest lie you've ever been sold. Energy isn't mystical. It's mechanical. It's real. It's the unseen framework that underlies everything: your breath, your thoughts, your emotions, your results. Every outcome in your life is shaped by it. And here's the wild part. There's an ancient book that explains exactly how to tap into it. Not metaphorically. Literally. It's called the Corpus Hermeticum. And no, it's not some dusty myth or religious fantasy. It's a guidebook, hidden in plain sight, disguised in metaphor, and cloaked in allegory. But when you learn to decode it, something shifts. It's like a switch flips. Suddenly, it's not about belief anymore. It's about control. Not control over others, control over the only thing that actually matters: your frequency, your energetic output, your internal broadcast signal. That's the part they didn't want you to discover. Because once you realize your reality is shaped from the inside out, not from the outside in, no system, no structure, no institution can control you. Here's the truth most people never get to hear. You are already radiating energy, every second. The only question is, are you doing it intentionally, or are you doing it by accident? See, the greatest trick ever played wasn't about hiding some magical secret. It was convincing you that energy was vague, abstract, untouchable. That you could only access it through years of spiritual discipline, or maybe never at all. But here's the kicker. You've felt it your whole life. You just weren't taught to recognize it. Think about it. That weird tension when you walk into a room where something's off, even before anyone speaks. That electric chill when someone stares at you from across the room. That deep calm in the presence of someone you trust, even without saying a word. Those aren't quirks, they're signals. That's energy. That's your body picking up on a frequency, loud and clear. The problem is, we weren't trained to understand this language. We were raised in a system that worships logic, memorization, performance. A system that trains you to value your thoughts over your feelings, your mind over your intuition. And energy. That was treated like it belonged in fairy tales. Woo-woo nonsense. But what if that wasn't just an oversight? What if it was intentional? What if numbing your natural connection to energy was part of the design? Here's the reality. You are a transmitter, a living broadcast tower. Every breath you take, every emotion you feel, every subconscious pattern you hold is sending out a signal, constantly. You're shaping your environment, even if you don't realize it. And that field, the one the Hermeticists call the divine current, it doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you're aligned with internally. Most people, they're misaligned, completely. Not because they're lazy, not because they don't try hard enough, but because their energy is all over the place, fragmented by unconscious thoughts, cluttered with old emotions, drenched in noise they never learned to clear. That's why it feels like they're pushing so hard but getting nowhere. The signal is fuzzy, so the field reflects fuzz right back. Static in, static out. But Hermeticism breaks that illusion wide open. It says your breath, your focus, your emotional state, they're not just personal experiences. They are tools. They shape your signal. And your signal, that shapes everything. The Corpus Hermeticum doesn't ask you to believe in some cosmic force. It's not about belief, it's about interaction. It says that force is already flowing. And you're already connected to it. You just haven't been taught how to command it. Until now. Now, obviously, there are some parts of this system we can't say out loud here. They're too sharp, too raw. But if you want the full breakdown, you can get it inside our free newsletter, Insights Academy. The link is below. And when you sign up, you'll also get a free digital copy of the Cybelon, while it's still available. Because here's what makes this ancient text dangerous. It's not that it gives you power. It's that it reminds you you already had it. That's what institutions fear. That's what they've been working overtime to bury. Not because it's fake, but because it's too real. Energy isn't optional. It's not theoretical. It's the current of life itself. And the only real difference between people who feel stuck and those who seem to bend reality in their direction is simple. Some are transmitting by accident. Others are transmitting by design. And that's why the corpus hermeticum was buried under centuries of symbolism, misinterpretation, and mysticism. Not because it was nonsense, but because it was too effective, too direct. It didn't teach people how to pray for change. It taught them how to generate it. Not through politics, not through religion, but through the deliberate manipulation of energy. Because when you can bend the current that shapes reality itself, you don't need permission to live freely. That's why it's dangerous, not just to the old dogmas, but to the systems that still depend on your energetic ignorance today. What's hidden in those hermetic texts isn't just a collection of abstract ideas. It's a map. But not a map of geography, a map of perception. It teaches one powerful, forgotten truth. Reality isn't fixed, it's fluid. It bends, it shifts, it reconfigures in the hands of those who understand the structure beneath it, and that structure doesn't begin out there. It starts in here. The ancient Hermeticists weren't passive thinkers sitting around contemplating stars. They were engineers of the unseen. They believed that every human being is a microcosm of the entire universe. And if you can align the microcosm, your body, your mind, your emotional field, then you can directly affect the macrocosm. What's above is like what's below. What's within is reflected without. That's not poetic fluff. That's mechanics. Hermeticism isn't about detachment from the world. It's not about renouncing desire or moving to the mountains. It's about alignment, precision. Being in sync with the energy you're already radiating, and learning how to shape it on purpose. According to the texts, a human being isn't just a body. You're a trinity: body, soul, and divine spark. Let's break that down. The body is your vessel, the part of you that moves, breathes, eats, speaks. The soul is your conductor, the bridge between the physical and the energetic. The spark, or nous, is the director, the piece of divine intelligence embedded in you, guiding your alignment. When all three are in sync, energy flows through you cleanly. Your signal is strong. Your frequency becomes sharp, clear, intentional. But when even one piece is fragmented, when your body is tense, your mind is scattered, your emotions are suppressed, then distortion creeps in. And distorted signals create distorted results. That's why most people live in fragmentation. They've got thoughts pulling them in one direction, emotions pulling them in another, and a body locked in fight or flight mode. They want change, but their system is scrambled. Their broadcast is full of static, so Hermeticism gives us the path back. And here's what's critical: alignment isn't moral. It's not about being good, it's about being clear. That's it. This path doesn't ask you to be passive. It doesn't ask you to surrender your will. It asks you to refine your will, until it becomes indistinguishable from divine order itself. You don't wait for alignment, you build it. One breath at a time, one thought at a time, one choice at a time. And when your internal broadcast becomes coherent, the outer world starts to respond. Not in metaphor, in form. Tangible, real-world results. This book isn't a theory of how the universe might work. It's a manual for how to interact with it deliberately. The Hermetic Masters didn't say, Believe and you'll receive. They said, refine your signal and the field will adjust. The universe doesn't respond to effort. It responds to frequency. Here's why this is so powerful and so disruptive. If energy is real, if your thoughts, emotions, and breath are shaping your experience, then everything you've ever gone through, every high, every crash, every coincidence, has been shaped by your internal state. And that's not a punishment. That's precision. You've been broadcasting this whole time. Even now, as you're listening to this, your system is sending out a signal. Not figuratively. Literally, your field is pulsing with information. Thoughts, they don't live in your head. Emotions, they're not private. Your internal state is not contained, it's radiated. That's what Hermeticists understood centuries ago, and not in some poetic, mysterious way. They meant it literally. What you focus on becomes energized. What you energize starts to form. Your attention is more than just mental focus. It's an energetic directive. It's your remote control, your keyboard, your transmitter. And the moment your attention is fractured, when it's jumping between fear, distractions, obligations, your external life starts to reflect that fragmentation. You try to create clarity, but your signals split. You try to manifest abundance, but you're broadcasting lack. You try to feel peace, but your system is overloaded with tension. This is the Hermetic foundation. Attention is sacred currency. You spend it constantly. The question is, are you investing it, or are you leaking it? Most people, they're leaking it. They think life is just happening to them. But what they don't realize is that life is actually responding to them. It's not chaos. It's a feedback loop. Your mind is the signal. Your field is the transmitter. Your life is the echo. If your mind is filled with loops of doubt, if your emotional state is stuck in guilt, if your body is tense and your breath is shallow, what do you think you're transmitting? What kind of signal are you sending out into the world? This isn't theoretical. It's structural. The Corpus Hermeticum lays it out. Thought is not just a personal experience, it's a vibration. And the more you repeat a thought, especially when it's charged with emotion, the more that vibration solidifies. It becomes form. That's how belief is built. And belief, especially the kind you don't question, becomes architecture. Invisible scaffolding that shapes what's possible for you. What you attract, what you block, what you unconsciously reject. Most people live in invisible prisons made of thoughts they didn't even choose. Thoughts about their worth, their potential, their limits. Not because those thoughts are true, but because they were repeated so many times, the field adapted to them. But here's where everything flips. The Hermetic teachings don't tell you to believe in magic. They tell you to engineer your reality. Thought by thought, breath by breath. Your inner world? It's not a mirror of your life. It's the blueprint. And when you clean up that blueprint, when you begin breathing with presence, focusing with clarity, and holding intention with precision, life doesn't just get better. It reorganizes, not randomly, not by luck, but because the signal changed. You've probably heard the term manifestation, and maybe you've tried it. Visualization, affirmations, vision boards, you name it. But here's the thing no one really tells you. Visualization isn't fantasy, it's instruction. When you visualize something clearly, emotionally, repeatedly, you're sending a structured signal into the field. You're not hoping the universe gives it to you. You're not begging for it. You're coding it into reality. But the catch, that signal only works when your internal world is coherent enough to hold it. If you say you want peace, but your thoughts are racing and your body is anxious, you're sending mixed signals. If you claim you're manifesting abundance, but you still obsess over lack every day, you're broadcasting two opposite frequencies. And guess what happens when you send out a split signal? You get noise, static, confusion. That's not because you're being punished. That's not because you're doing it wrong. That's because the field, the energy you live in, is precise. It doesn't give you what you wish for. It gives you what you're aligned with. So, this is why Hermeticism emphasizes coherence, not positivity, not blind faith, but vibrational clarity. Mental discipline, in this system, isn't about repressing your thoughts or faking happiness. It's about choosing your thought patterns with the same care you'd use if you were building a bridge or writing code. Because that's exactly what you're doing. You're constructing your energetic blueprint with every thought, every breath, every moment of attention. You can't just throw out random affirmations while your nervous system is still stuck in fear mode. You can't say, "I am abundant," while preparing for scarcity every day. The signal doesn't care about your words. It cares about your alignment. And here's the part people miss. Your thoughts are broadcasting. Constantly. They're not floating in your head like harmless clouds. They're pressing grooves into your field. Grooves that determine where energy flows in your life. This is why people get stuck in the same emotional loops, the same relationship patterns, the same financial ceilings. It's not fate. It's not bad luck. It's signal repetition. Every repeated thought builds a groove. Every groove becomes structure, and structure shapes outcome. So when Hermetic texts talk about purifying the mind, they don't mean becoming morally pure or thinking only happy thoughts. They mean removing distortion, creating clarity, becoming a clean transmitter, a transmitter that doesn't wobble under pressure, a transmitter that doesn't flicker between hope and fear every 5 minutes. They were teaching mental precision, emotional clarity, energetic integrity, and the result? Your reality starts reflecting back what you actually intend, not what you unconsciously fear. Because here's the law no one escapes. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. Now let's zoom out for a second. There's this idea floating around in modern spirituality that external tools are what give you power. The crystal holds the frequency. The ritual opens the portal. The chant activates the magic. And while those tools can be powerful, they're amplifiers. They're mirrors. They don't generate energy. You do. This is a hard truth for some people because the spiritual market thrives on selling you the next thing, the next deck, the next sigil, the next ancient script that will unlock your power. But according to the Corpus Hermeticum, all of that is secondary. The tool is not the source. You are. A crystal in the hand of someone scattered will do nothing but gather dust. But in the hand of someone who's clear, focused, and coherent, it becomes a tuning fork. It becomes a signal booster. Same object, entirely different effect. Why? Because the frequency comes from you. Even rituals, if they're done without presence, are just theater. They may look sacred. They might even feel important. But without real attention, focused breath, and emotional charge, they don't move energy. They don't shape the field. They're empty. But when you engage a ritual with intention, when you move your body deliberately, breathe with purpose, and hold an aligned thought, that ritual becomes architecture. It becomes structure in the unseen. It programs the field. This is why Hermeticists spent just as much time preparing their mindset as they did their altar. Because without inner clarity, outer tools are just noise. And this is where most people go wrong. They try to fix their lives by fixing what's around them. They change jobs, move cities, buy new crystals, switch friend groups, revamp their entire morning routine. And sometimes, yeah, it helps. Temporarily. But energy doesn't respond to cosmetic changes. It responds to resonance. And resonance is an inside job. If your system is still incoherent, if your thoughts, emotions, and body are misaligned, nothing outside of you will bring lasting clarity. You can surround yourself with sacred geometry, wear every protective stone, burn all the right herbs, and still feel stuck. Because the tool is not the source. And this isn't meant to dismiss the beauty of those tools. This is about reclaiming your role as the primary instrument of your energy work. When you hold a symbol, what matters isn't the ink or the metal or the design, it's the meaning you infuse it with. When you light a candle or chant a phrase, the power isn't in the fire or the sound, it's in your consciousness activating it. The Hermetic principle is simple, and it's one of the most important things you'll ever hear. Energy follows attention. And attention, when clear and focused, shapes the field, not the other way around. This is the shift most people never make. They keep collecting tools, memorizing rituals, chasing the next spiritual secret, but they never develop the internal voltage to power any of it. Because the truth is, those tools, they're training wheels, they're reminders, not requirements. And when you finally realize that, when you can sit in silence, close your eyes, align your breath, focus your will, and shape energy without touching a single object, that's when the real power comes online. So here's where the game really changes. When you finally understand that your body, not the tools, not the chants, not the ceremonies, is the most advanced piece of energetic technology you'll ever use, everything clicks. They never told you your body was sacred. They told you it was a vehicle, a machine, something to work, sculpt, shame, or ignore. But Hermeticism says otherwise. In Hermetic philosophy, the body isn't just part of the system, it is the system. It's not just a container for the spirit. It's the spirit in motion. Your body is the altar. Your breath is the ritual. Your will is the wand. Think about that for a second. You don't need to go somewhere sacred to do the work. You are the sacred space. When you move with intention, when you breathe with awareness, when you align your posture with presence, you're not just living, you're broadcasting. You've already seen glimpses of this. In yoga, in martial arts, in Tai Chi, practices that weave breath, motion, and attention into one coherent expression. But long before they became systems, they were principles, and those principles run straight through the Hermetic tradition. The message is simple. When you move with conscious breath, you're not just stretching, you're not just exercising. You're transmitting, you're becoming the ritual. You're not casting a spell, you are the spell. Every movement becomes a signal. Every gesture becomes a statement. Your field responds instantly. Why? Because muscles aren't just physical, they're energetic storage units. They hold tension, memory, emotional residue. That's why a single stretch can make you cry. That's not weakness, that's release. That's energy leaving the system. See, motion is how your nervous system speaks when your words can't keep up. That's why dance, shaking, jumping, spiraling, all those primal movements can feel so healing. They're not random, they're codes. When done with breath and presence, they unlock and clear energetic channels that therapy and logic can't even reach. But the difference between movement that heals and movement that leaks energy is awareness. If you move without presence, if you push your body in the gym but never check in with your breath, your alignment, your emotion, you're just burning calories. You might look fit, but energetically, you're scattered, drained. Now flip that. When you move with presence, when your breath leads, your spine aligns, your heart stays open, You don't just take up space, you radiate. You walk differently. You hold space differently. You enter a room, and people feel your presence before you say a word. That's what Hermeticism teaches at its core. Beneath the symbols and the scrolls, it reminds you that your body isn't in the way of your energy work. It is the way. Your posture, your stillness, your gestures, they all speak a language the field understands. And when you sync those physical signals with your breath and your thoughts, you amplify your broadcast tenfold. That's why dancers can move an audience to tears without speaking. That's why a martial artist in flow looks untouchable, invincible. They've tuned their physical form to something greater than muscle memory. They've become transmitters. Their body isn't just moving. It's broadcasting a frequency. Every intentional movement is a purge. Every gesture is a calibration. You don't need a sacred space to do this. You don't need incense or gongs or special music. You just need your body, your breath, and your attention. And posture. That's more than just looking confident. It's frequency geometry. A collapsed, slouched posture. It compresses breath, shuts down your core, and sends a signal that says, I'm small. But an upright, open posture, it frees the breath. It expands your field. It says, I'm here. I take up space. I'm tuned in. It's not ego. It's structure. In Hermetic thought, the body was never seen as separate from spirit. It was the spirit expressed in form. It's the living altar, the moving wand, the breathing sigil. So when you walk with awareness, when you move with intention, when you breathe with purpose, you're not just navigating the world, you're shaping it. That's why every step can be sacred. Every breath can be a reset. Every gesture can be a command. The real question is, are you moving energy by design or by default? Because you're already doing it. Right now, even as you sit or stand, breathe or scroll, you're moving energy. You're pulsing signals into the field. But here's the tough truth. You're not unlucky, you're not cursed. And life isn't random. You are experiencing the exact frequency you're emitting. Your relationships, your opportunities, your obstacles, they're all reflections of the pattern your system is broadcasting. It's not personal, it's mechanical. And once you understand that, you're left with two options. Option 1, deny it. Keep blaming the external. Keep playing small. Keep waiting for the world to change. Option 2, own it. Reclaim your role as an engineer of your own reality. That's what Hermeticism demands. Radical responsibility. No more outsourcing your power. No more begging for signs. No more waiting for a miracle. It's all already moving, through you, because of you. Not because of your personality, not because of your intentions, but because of your alignment. You can say you want love, but if your field is shaped by betrayal, it won't stick. You can want purpose, but if your system is still suppressing your voice, you'll stay spinning in circles. You can crave transformation, but if you keep defaulting to survival mode, you'll keep living in loops. It's not punishment, it's physics. You're the transmitter. The signal is yours, and the field, it's just responding. The corpus hermeticum doesn't sugarcoat it. It's not trying to make you feel good. It's trying to make you awake. It tells you flat out, as within, so without. As above, so below. Translation? Your outer world is an echo of your inner field. Your external reality isn't random. It's a perfect match for the frequency you carry, consciously or unconsciously. But here's the part that flips the script. Your field is not fixed. It's programmable. That's the breakthrough most people never reach. They get stuck thinking that who they are, what they feel, what they think, it's just how life is. But it's not. It's just patterned. And patterns can be rewritten. Every breath you take with awareness, every thought you repeat with intention, every movement, ritual, or pause done on purpose is you rewriting the code. The more coherence you bring to your system, body, mind, breath, emotion, the more the outer world begins to adjust to match it. Not instantly, but inevitably. Because the universe doesn't respond to what you want, it responds to what you broadcast consistently. That's why healing isn't just some emotional process, it's a mechanical one. When you let go of old wounds, you're not just feeling lighter, you're removing distortion from your energetic field. When you stop recycling mental loops of doubt and shame, you're freeing up bandwidth that was stuck running old programs. When you start breathing deeply, consciously, with intention, you're not just calming down, you're reoxygenating the signal. You're activating a stronger current. This is the part modern culture misses completely. It thinks healing is about feeling better, but in Hermetic thought, healing is about signal clarity. Every time you reclaim energy from a past loop, you strengthen your transmission. Every time you release emotional clutter, you clean your broadcast. And every time you choose to move with presence instead of compulsion, you tune your system toward alignment. It's all connected. Nothing is symbolic. Everything is structural. That's the shift from victim to engineer. And it starts with one brutally honest question. What patterns am I still loyal to? Not on the surface. Deep down. In your habits, your reactions, your unspoken thoughts, your unconscious agreements. Because your field doesn't care what you say you believe. It cares what you practice. You can say all the affirmations you want. You can talk about abundance, freedom, power. But if your nervous system is locked in fear mode, if your daily actions are reinforcing scarcity, shame, or self-doubt, your signal will match that. And the field, it responds to that. This is the mistake people make with manifestation. They try to trick the field. Smile through clenched teeth. Slap positive quotes on top of deep, emotional wounds. Post vision boards while secretly expecting failure. But you can't trick the field. You can only meet it with truth. Because the field isn't listening to your voice, it's listening to your frequency, the one you carry when no one's watching. When you're in your room, alone, breathing, thinking, feeling, that's the signal that shapes everything. And when you finally start to align that signal, when you start holding one clear, coherent, emotionally charged frequency consistently, something incredible happens. Reality starts bending to match you. You don't force it. You don't chase it. You don't beg for it. It aligns with you. Automatically. Because you've stopped asking for change and started becoming the frequency that demands it. This is the secret that was never supposed to get out. Not because it's complicated, but because once you realize that your alignment, not your words, not your rituals, not your image, is what shapes the world around you, you become uncontrollable. And systems built on control? They can't handle that. That's why this knowledge was hidden, buried, dismissed, ridiculed, turned into myth. Because when you stop depending on middlemen, whether they're religious, political, or spiritual, you become sovereign, not in theory, in function. The Hermetic teachings weren't about escape. They weren't about enlightenment as some faraway mountaintop. They were about becoming clear enough to live in alignment with the current, the universal flow that's already running through you. And that current? It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't care about credentials. It responds to one thing only: coherence. So the real question isn't, how do I attract what I want? It's, what am I broadcasting when no one's watching? That's the real work. And most people avoid it. Because it's not flashy. It doesn't always look good on social media. It's quiet. It's uncomfortable. It requires you to sit with yourself, to feel what's really going on beneath the surface. But once you do, once you start purifying your field, not through perfection, but through presence, everything changes, not overnight, not like a magic trick, but with a force that becomes impossible to deny. You start noticing synchronicities. Timing begins to align. The right people show up. The right doors open, not because you're lucky, but because the field has finally received a clear signal it can respond to. This is the forgotten power, and once you taste it, even for a second, you can never go back. Most people spend their lives looking for signs. Give me a sign I'm on the right path. Give me a sign this relationship is meant to be. Give me a sign that I should go all in. But here's the hermetic truth. You're not supposed to look for signs. You're supposed to become one. You're not waiting for alignment. You're meant to be the signal that causes alignment to happen. And the field, the energetic space we all live in, responds not to your questions, but to your clarity. That's why people who are truly aligned don't force anything. They don't chase, they don't beg, they don't hustle in a way that drains their soul. They radiate, and reality adjusts. Because when you walk into the world holding a steady frequency, when your inner world is coherent, when your signal is clean and congruent, everything around you starts to organize itself around that. Not because it's magic, because it's mechanics. This is why Hermeticism isn't about belief. It's not a religion. It's not a dogma. It's a system. A blueprint for understanding how energy moves, how it responds, and how you can shape it. You already have the tools. Your breath, your body, your attention, your will. These aren't poetic concepts. These are literal instruments. And the moment you stop reacting to life and start using those instruments deliberately, everything starts to shift. That's when you stop asking, "How do I change my life?" and start asking, "What frequency am I holding that's creating this?" Because once you shift the frequency, the form follows. That's why healing isn't just emotional, it's energetic. Let's go deeper on that. Have you ever noticed that sometimes your mind feels foggy, your body feels heavy, and your emotions just crash out of nowhere? You're not lazy, you're not broken, you're not weak. You're carrying static, unprocessed energy, residual frequencies from people, places, conversations, even things you saw online. Your energetic system is absorbing way more than you realize. Every room you walk into, every word someone speaks near you, every scroll on your phone. It's not just information, it's energy. And most of it, it's junk. And if you don't clear it, it doesn't just fade, it sticks. Because energy, by nature, is sticky, especially when it doesn't get moved. It clings to your system, your muscles, your emotions, your thoughts, and starts to distort your field. That's why cleansing your energy isn't some spiritual luxury. It's not optional, it's survival. Energetic maintenance is the new self-care, and Hermetic practitioners knew this deeply. They weren't meditating for fun or lighting candles just for ambience. They were doing maintenance on their broadcast system. So how do you cleanse? It starts with breath. Not just breathing deeper, but breathing with attention. Breathing with release. Every exhale becomes a purge. Every breath an act of reorganization. Visualize it, gray mist leaving your body. Stale energy exiting your mouth. Tension evaporating into the air. It doesn't take long, just presence. Layer that with water, salt baths, cold showers, natural rivers or oceans. These aren't mystical ideas. They're energetic reset points. The body recognizes water as a conduit for letting go. But cleansing isn't enough. The next step is protection. Because even if your field is clear, how do you keep it clear? How do you stay clean in a world that's constantly trying to pour static into your system? That's where shielding comes in. Again, not metaphor. Practice. Picture a sphere of light around you, expanding from your core. Strong, clear, impenetrable. Hold that image. Don't just see it, feel it. The more consistently you do this, the more your system adapts. Your energy begins to contour around your intention. You don't just have boundaries, people feel them before you speak. But here's the nuance most people miss. Protection isn't the end game. It's half the equation. Because no matter how clear your field is, life is still going to happen. Fear, sadness, conflict, loss. These are part of being human. So what do you do with the dense energy that does get in? You don't suppress it, you transmute it. This is the real hermetic art, energetic alchemy. Turning emotional weight into power, fear into awareness, anger into action, sadness into depth. You don't avoid energy, you assign it. Imagine a golden flame at your core, your solar plexus. When something heavy shows up, rage, grief, shame, breathe it into that fire. See it being burned, refined, transformed. What leaves isn't what entered. That's the point. This is inner mastery, not bypassing, not pretending, but reconfiguring. Because energy isn't good or bad, it's neutral. It only becomes negative when it's stuck, when it's out of place, or when it's held too long. But once you learn to cleanse it, shield your field, and transmute the rest, you become something rare, sovereign, not untouched by life, but unshaken by it. Not disconnected from emotion, but able to direct it. You're no longer bouncing between moods and reacting to every trigger. You become a stable broadcaster, an aligned frequency that life begins to organize itself around. That's what the Hermetic texts were always pointing to. Not escape, not enlightenment, embodiment. Living in a way that processes life without distortion, moving through the world without being thrown off by it. Holding your center no matter what enters the room. Because once you learn how to work with your own energy, not as an idea but as a technology, you stop chasing change and start becoming the change. Let's talk about something most people never question. The idea that your thoughts are private. You've been told they live inside your head, that they come and go in isolation, bouncing around like harmless noise. But Hermeticism doesn't treat thought that way. In fact, it says the opposite. Thought is not passive. It's not private. It's not abstract. It's structure. Every thought you repeat, especially when it's charged with emotion, starts to etch itself into your energetic field like grooves on a vinyl record. And over time, those grooves become default settings. They determine how energy flows in your life, where it builds momentum, where it hits resistance, where it completely stalls out. The average person thinks thousands of thoughts a day, but here's the problem. Most of those thoughts aren't new. They're recycled. You think the same doubts, the same judgments, the same fantasies, the same anxieties. And because they're so familiar, you stop noticing them. They become the background music of your mind. But the field doesn't treat them as background noise. It treats them as instructions. This is the trap. You're constantly giving energetic commands, even when you don't realize it. Especially when you don't realize it. And the field, it's not confused. It doesn't listen to your conscious desires. It listens to your dominant frequency, the one you reinforce repetitively. This is why Hermetic teachings come with such uncomfortable clarity. They don't let you blame circumstances. They don't let you point fingers at fate. They force you to look at what you're broadcasting, day in and day out. If your life feels stuck, chaotic, or misaligned, It's not because the world is broken. It's likely because your thought field is cluttered, distorted, or split. Your outer world is just a feedback loop, and that loop is running 24/7. That's why visualization, when done right, isn't just daydreaming. It's code. You're feeding a signal into the field. But here's what makes that code work: emotional charge and coherent intention. You can't just casually imagine things and expect your life to transform. You have to infuse the image with feeling. You have to hold it with focus. You have to transmit it like a signal tower, not just toss it into the ether. And the most powerful time to do that? When your system is receptive, during breathwork, meditation, or the hypnagogic state right before sleep. That's when your conscious filters soften. That's when your field is most programmable. Repeat the image. Charge it emotionally. Hold it consistently. That's not superstition. That's frequency engineering. And the field responds. But this only works if your system is clear enough to carry the signal. If your mind is full of contradiction, if you say you want peace but live in anxiety, if you want abundance but constantly fear loss, then your broadcast is scrambled. Two opposing signals. One cancels the other out. And the result? Static. No response. It's not because the universe is ignoring you. It's because your frequency is incoherent. This is the tough love truth of Hermeticism. The field doesn't deliver what you want. It delivers what you are in alignment with. That's why mental discipline matters. Not for morality, not for control, but for clarity. You don't need to become robotic or hyper-rational, but you do need to choose your thoughts the way an architect chooses beams and materials. Carefully, deliberately. Because if your thoughts are loaded with fear, resentment, or shame, and those thoughts are repeated, emotionally charged, and go unexamined, then that's the signal you're sending. And that's what's going to come back. Not because the universe is cruel, but because it's exact. So when Hermetic texts talk about purification, they're not talking about being pure in a moral sense. They're talking about vibrational clarity. They're saying, cleanse your thoughts of contradiction. Hold your emotions without distortion. Bring your mind into stillness, not as a performance, but as a foundation. Because a mind that is still, clear, and intentional can generate clean frequencies, and those frequencies don't just sit in the air. They ripple outward, they take form, they rearrange the field. This is what it means to be an engineer of reality. Not just to observe your inner world, but to build it. With precision, with intention, with repetition. Every day, every hour, every moment you're sending a signal, and that signal is shaping what shows up in your life. The question isn't, is it working? The question is, what am I transmitting? And once you understand that, you stop blaming. You stop chasing. You stop outsourcing your power to other people, rituals, tools, or trends. You become the source code, and everything begins to shift around that. There's this belief that tools are where the magic is. That if you just find the right ritual, the right crystal, the right symbol, you'll finally unlock the power you've been missing. And that belief has been carefully marketed to you. But Hermeticism takes a sledgehammer to that illusion. It says, the tool is not the source, you are. Crystals, candles, chants, sacred geometry, they're not inherently magical. They're amplifiers. They enhance what's already there. They focus and reflect energy, but they don't generate it. You do. That's a powerful truth. But it's also an inconvenient one for the spiritual marketplace and for the part of us that wants shortcuts. Because once you accept that you are the origin of your frequency, you can't play the victim anymore. You can't keep waiting for something outside of you to fix you. You have to do the real work. The internal alignment. It's like this. You can give the same tuning fork to two people. One person is scattered, disconnected, emotionally turbulent. The other is grounded, focused, clear. Same tool. Completely different effect. Why? Because it's not the tool, it's the transmitter. Even the most ancient rituals are dead weight in the hands of someone not present. They may go through the motions, say the words, light the candles, but nothing moves, because ritual without presence is performance. But in the hands of someone coherent, that same ritual becomes architecture. It shapes the unseen. That's why ancient hermeticists didn't just prep the external space, they prepped their mind. They purified their intention. They aligned their will. They sharpened their attention. Because without internal clarity, external action is just noise. And here's the part that flips everything. Most people try to fix their lives by fixing the outside. They rearrange their furniture. They jump from one relationship to another. They buy new clothes. They travel, hoping to reset. And yeah, sometimes it works, for a while. But energy doesn't respond to aesthetics. It responds to resonance. If your system, your thoughts, emotions, and breath is still broadcasting incoherence, no amount of sage, self-help books, or location changes will bring lasting alignment. You'll keep manifesting the same cycles in new packaging. Because the field isn't listening to your Instagram feed. It's listening to your signal. And when your signal is messy, confused, or split, you create messy, confusing, fragmented outcomes. This isn't about stripping away the beauty of external tools. It's about elevating your role in the process. It's about realizing that when you hold a crystal or light a candle, it's not about the object, it's about the energy you're feeding into it, the meaning you're assigning to it, the state you're in when you use it. Because energy follows attention, and attention, when coherent, directs energy. That's the real power. That's what makes a ritual effective. That's what turns a symbol into a frequency anchor. That's what transforms your daily actions into energetic commands. But if your attention is fractured, jumping between tabs, texts, to-do lists, and trauma loops, your energy can't organize. Your field can't hold clarity. And without clarity, the universe doesn't know how to respond. So what's the shift? It's moving from external dependency to internal mastery. It's understanding that all the power you've been looking for in tools, teachers, and timelines, it's already moving through you. Right now, the problem isn't lack of access. It's lack of coherence. When you start living like you are the ritual, when your breath is intentional, your thoughts are chosen, and your body is aligned, your presence starts doing the work for you. You don't have to shout your truth. You don't have to hustle for validation. You radiate a frequency that speaks louder than words. People feel it. Opportunities shift. Obstacles dissolve. Not because you're lucky, because you've stopped leaking energy into distraction and started channeling it into deliberate transmission. And that's what Hermeticism ultimately teaches. You are the system. You are the altar. You are the spell. You are the source of the current. And when you start living like that, the world has no choice but to reorganize around your signal. This is why ancient practitioners didn't treat energy work like a side project. It wasn't a weekend hobby. It was the core of how they lived. They knew that the body isn't something to transcend, it's the interface. The body is the magic. Your breath, your posture, your gestures, they're not just physical motions, they're signals, they're instructions, they're keys that unlock access to deeper frequencies. When you walk with presence, the ground becomes sacred. When you speak with clarity, your words shape momentum. When you stand still with power, the room feels it. That's not charisma. That's coherence. You're not just moving through space, you're transmitting into it. And the more intentional you become, the more precise your transmission gets. Until life stops feeling like something that's happening to you and starts feeling like something that's unfolding through you. Because when you live as the signal, you don't chase transformation. You embody it, and everything else adjusts. Let's break something big. The lie that your body is just a container. You've been taught it's just flesh and blood, that it's a machine, something to control, sculpt, or shame. At best, it's been seen as a vehicle for your real self, your mind or your soul. But Hermeticism, it doesn't see the body that way at all. In Hermetic thought, your body is not secondary, it's central. It's not just part of your system, it is the system. It's the altar, the interface. The living broadcast tower. Your body is the most magical, responsive, intelligent tool you will ever work with. And once you start treating it that way, everything shifts. This is where energy stops being a concept and starts being embodied. It starts with motion, not just exercise, not just getting your steps in. We're talking about conscious movement, movement with breath, awareness, and intent. You've seen this in ancient practices like yoga, martial arts, Tai Chi. Every inhale matched to motion, every gesture deliberate, every stance a signal. But you don't need to learn a formal practice to access this power. You just need to move on purpose, because every movement you make is an opportunity to shift energy. Every stretch can be a release, every twist can be a clearing, every breath can be a reset. This is why shaking, spiraling, swaying, they aren't just cathartic, they're functional. They're how your nervous system processes what words can't touch. And the proof. Have you ever stretched and suddenly started crying? Not because you were in pain, but because something unlocked. That wasn't random. That was data leaving your system. Because muscles hold memory. They store emotion. They grip onto past tension like code waiting to be cleared. So when you move intentionally, with presence and breath, you don't just release physical tension, you discharge stuck frequency. That's why dancers can transmit raw feeling with no words. Why martial artists in flow seem untouchable. They're not just skilled, they're tuned. Their body has become a vessel for frequency, not through muscle memory, but through energetic alignment. Your body can do that too. And posture. It matters more than anyone tells you. Slouched shoulders, a collapsed chest, shallow breath, all of that compresses your energy field. It tells the world and the field, I'm small, I'm shrinking. But an upright spine, open chest, grounded stance, that expands your field. It broadcasts, I'm here, I'm clear, I'm ready. It's not about looking confident, it's about structuring your signal. Hermeticism calls this frequency geometry, because how you hold your body is how you hold your power. When your body is aligned, your breath flows. When your breath flows, your energy moves. When your energy moves, your field clears. And when your field clears, your life changes. But the magic doesn't require a mat, a ritual space, or a set of rules. All it requires is attention. Walk with awareness, and your environment becomes sacred. Stand still with intention, and your presence becomes magnetic. You don't need to do energy work. You just need to realize that you already are. The question is, are you doing it on purpose? You're not unlucky. You're not off path. You're not broken. You're just broadcasting what you haven't yet taken control of. Your life is not a random string of events. It's a feedback loop, a mirror. Every relationship, challenge, delay, or success, it's all responding to your signal. And once you see that, you face a choice. Stay in denial, blame the world, blame your luck, keep searching for fixes outside yourself, or step into design. Take ownership, tune your field, and become deliberate in what you transmit. That's the edge where Hermeticism lives. It doesn't offer comfort. It doesn't give you shortcuts. It gives you sovereignty. And that's exactly why the system doesn't want you to learn it. Because sovereign people don't wait to be saved. They don't outsource their power to authority, culture, religion, or brands. They don't need validation from approval systems that profit off their self-doubt. Sovereign people design their lives from the inside out. And once you become one, the whole game changes. Because now, you're not reacting to life. You're not asking for permission. You're not seeking answers outside yourself. You're building a life that vibrates from your internal alignment outward. That's the forgotten truth the ancient texts were protecting. That's the current modern culture tries to dull with distraction. But once you feel it, once you remember who you actually are beneath all the noise, there's no going back. This is where everything comes full circle. You've been trained to think power is complicated, that it takes years of study, the right certifications, some mystical initiation to access it, that you need gurus, that you need permission. But Hermeticism says, power isn't complicated, it's coherent. The field doesn't care what degrees you have, what books you've read, or how spiritual you seem. It only listens to one thing, your signal. Are you clear? Are you aligned? Are you consistent? Because people who live in alignment don't have to announce it. They don't have to prove anything. They walk into a room and everything shifts. Not because they're trying to be seen, but because their presence speaks louder than their words ever could. That's what happens when you stop performing and start embodying. You stop chasing success and start radiating certainty. You stop needing attention and start commanding respect without saying a word. You stop waiting for the world to recognize you and start recognizing yourself. This is the secret Hermeticism points to over and over again. You are the current. You are the circuit. You are the conductor. And when you start acting like it, the external world begins to match you. Automatically, systematically, consistently. Not because you forced it, but because you finally aligned with it. The final truth isn't buried in a monastery. It's not hidden in a scroll. It's not encrypted in hieroglyphs. It's you. It's always been you. The system trained you to believe otherwise, to look outward, to defer, to follow, to chase the next trick, trend, or tool that would finally flip the switch. But the Hermetic teachings strip all of that away. They bring you back to one simple idea. The current is already flowing through you. You don't have to summon it. You don't have to earn it. You just have to stop blocking it. And the only things standing in the way? Old patterns, static thoughts, fragmented energy, emotional weight that was never processed, beliefs you never even chose, but repeated until they became real. And the moment you begin to clear those distortions, the moment you reclaim your breath, your focus, your intention, and your movement, you go from passive participant to active designer. You stop leaking energy into the old world and begin shaping a new one with every breath, every thought, every action. Because here's what they never wanted you to realize. Once you reclaim your current, once you begin living as your frequency instead of talking about it, you become impossible to manipulate, impossible to ignore. That's why Hermeticism was hidden. That's why its principles were buried under metaphor and dismissed as mysticism. Because a human being who knows how to shape energy, deliberately, intentionally, precisely, is the most dangerous kind of human there is. Not because they're destructive, but because they're free. And free people, they don't fit in systems built on control, fear, and distraction. They don't consume from emptiness. They don't beg for validation. They don't wait for change. They generate it. So the real question is, Are you willing to let go of who you were trained to be? Are you ready to live in a way that no longer depends on the opinions, structures, or expectations of others? Because that's where the current lives. In your unfiltered, uncommodified, unaltered self. It's been humming underneath all the noise, all along, waiting for you to come back. This isn't about rebellion for the sake of it. It's not about burning everything down. It's about remembering who you are and living like it matters. Reclaim your energy. Refine your field. Stop reacting and start broadcasting. Not through effort, through frequency, not through hope, through coherence. And when you're ready to take it even further, when you want access to the teachings we can't say here, join us in the Insights Academy newsletter. It's raw, it's free, and for a limited time, you'll get a digital copy of the Kybalion just for signing up. This isn't fluff, it's a portal. So if this message hit home, if something inside you just clicked, drop a comment below and type, "I understood it." Because if you did, you've already begun.